All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Trail Talk Tuesdays. There's a ton of amazing things going on right now for Kansas trails, as I'm sure most of you are aware. So let's jump in and get started. So, for those of you lucky people who were able to attend the Hall of Fame induction ceremony last week in Ottawa for the Flint Hills Trail, it was such a fantastic event. There were a number of state officials who I have listed here, and a number of key organizations in attendance to support this historical event for the Flint Hills Trail. Um, our friend Jeff Carroll, who many of you heard speak last week, was able to live stream the video of the event on on the Ottawa Bike and Trail Facebook page. So if you didn't have a chance to look at that, I'd encourage you to take 20 minutes and listen to all of the great speakers about the fantastic trail. And I wasn't able to personally attend, but it made me feel like I was there. So if you have a second, pop on there and check it out. Jeff's also making another video that we'll post to the Kansas Trails Inc. website and social media platforms, kind of a little bit about their Moonlight Ride, and all of the Hall of Fame's events. So let's see. Next, I'm super excited to announce another upcoming event that Kansas Trails is happy to support and promote. It's called the Ride for Resilience. And this is Mike Scanlon, our executive director's initiative, Kansas Trails Initiative. Many of you know or may not know, Mike was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer last year. And as a non-smoker, this was incredibly shocking to him. And to help raise awareness about this cancer, he's embarking on this adventure ride for resilience, sorry. So over 30 days, he's going to hit 60 trails, and hit 700 miles throughout Kansas, visiting our rural communities and our metropolitan trails, and really putting some of these trails on the map, talking to local people, how important these trails are for their communities. And he's also raising money for lung cancer research with our partner Go02 or Go to Lung Cancer. And so we're raising money with them and also for Kansas Trails. And to top it off, another amazing thing about it is we've got 2 anonymous donors who are going to match up to $20,000 of the first of $20,000 raised, and the fundraising goal is $75,000. Throughout the month, beginning on September 15th, we'll post daily on our social media platforms. Mike's going to make a daily video of all of his exciting experiences on the trail. And we invite everyone who's in any of these communities to come out and ride with Mike and share their stories and explain why the trails are so important to them and personally. Mike, did I cover the high level of that?
You covered it well, Brittany. I think you hit everything.
Good. That was the hope. So I'm glad that worked. So anyway, stay tuned for that stuff. We're going to post a list of where this map that you see here shows all of the trails throughout the state. So he's gonna hit every single quadrant of the state and have a blast doing it. So I'm excited to go meet him on the trail for a couple of these. And I'd encourage you all to do the same.
So I'm looking for a rider. See that star in the far southwest corner? Anybody that would like to ride the Cimarron National Grasslands, I invite you. It will be, I believe, September 19th that I will hit there. September 19th, September 20th.
All right. So stay tuned. There we go. So stay tuned to hear about where he's going to be, and the press release is going out today. So hopefully it hits your news media outlets, and please share any of the information throughout your Facebook pages and Instagram pages and LinkedIn pages with your networks to help promote this fantastic event. All right, so let's get to the meat of today's episode, partnering with local governments. So back when we started these Trail Talk Tuesdays episodes, started the planning for it, we sent out a trail user survey just to get feedback from the trail users in Kansas on what are the most important topics that they wanted to hear more about. And partnering with local governments was right at the top of that list. So we know that it's an important topic. We've assembled a fantastic speaker panel today to give their insights and share their experiences on how to best partner with local governments. And so I'll introduce the speakers and then I'll turn it over to Mike, who also has a couple things to share about local governments, and we'll get going. So Thatcher Moddie is joining us from the city of Harrington, Kansas as the city manager. Thatcher is also a board member for the Kansas Trails Incorporated. So thanks for joining us, Thatcher. Branden Dross is also joining us. He was the former city manager from Harrington, and many of you know that Harrington is playing a big part in the Flint Hills Trail at this point. Branden's now in Lafayette, Oregon, and he's also serving as the city manager there. So thanks for joining us. Crystal Cummins is the city clerk for Isabel, Kansas. She is also a board member of Kansas Trails Inc. And then Dave Williams is also joining us today. He's the board chair for Adventure NWK, which is a mountain biking organization out in Colby, Kansas. So let's kick it off. Let Mike take the horn, and can't wait to hear from all of you.
So as Brittany said, one of the things that we saw in the survey was, how do you work with your local governments? How do you work to get a trail built that you want built in your community? And the good news is you have today, outside of me, 3 people that are in local government every day. And then the great thing with Dave is someone who's made a pitch to a city council about trails that he's interested in his community. At the end of the day, the one thing that I always remind people is, for city managers, especially in small Kansas communities, you think that we have sort of like unlimited time to dedicate to things. Many people do. So when someone hands you a problem, they think, for example, like trails, like you're able to dedicate, endless hours to it. And what I always remind people, if a city manager in Kansas has 5 hours a month to give up to think about trails, and that's either putting together applications or making sure that they're being maintained, that's about all they can do. And that would hold true for city clerks and finance directors, because there's so many other things that are competing with your time. And in the case of Harrington, which is no different than Osawatomie, where I was city manager, where I'm sitting today, it's utilities, it's streets, it's police, it's your volunteer fire department. There are so many things that a city clerk, city administrator, city manager is having to deal with, that trails and recreation tend to fall to the bottom of the pile, because you're trying to work on those critical services that you deliver every day. Water isn't, whenever we get around to it, people want water in their home and they need it. Sanitary sewer isn't something you get to, oh, we'll wait a week and then we'll fix it. So there's a lot of things that, especially in old communities, Osawatomie being almost 175 years old, that tend to fail simply because we're old. And when you're small, you just have less resources that you can apply to it. And I'm going to be interested in hearing Branden in terms of where he works and where he once worked, kind of what those differences are, especially when you have trails in the Northwest United States is known for a lot of trails that they have. You have the alpha and omega of the Flint Hills Trail. So you have the beginning and end. Osawatomie is at mile 0. Harrington's at the very end, about 118 miles away from Osawatomie. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Thatcher.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm Thatcher Moddie, city manager of Harrington. So it's nice to have Branden here as well to be able, hopefully a little later on, to fill in some of the gaps and the origins of the Flint Hills Trail in Harrington. But I'll go ahead and outline a few things on the next slide. So tying into Mike's point is the biggest thing I think here is to be patient, not only with your city manager or your local government, but just the fact that completed trails don't happen overnight. So I think this all came to fruition back in 2021, maybe 2022, and we have yet to see the trail fully developed in Harrington, or likewise the last section from Harrington to Council Grove. So trails don't happen overnight. Federal grants don't happen overnight. KDWP is working hard and hopefully going to get our trail finished out here in the next year. But I think the big thing we have to do is just be patient with be excited, but be patient. Really the next point is just be bold. I mean, really the origin of the Flint Hills Trail, Osawatomie really kind of kicked it off back in the day and made that section something. And particularly Osawatomie and Ottawa have kind of carried the torch to see the Flint Hills Trail finish that full 119 miles. And that really ties into my third point, which is teamwork. A couple of years ago, we sat down with the city managers of Osawatomie, Ottawa, Council Grove, and myself in Harrington, and kind of designated this board and worked hard to figure out with Mike Scanlon what is now Kansas Trails is going to be, formerly Kansas Association of Trail Towns. There's been some iterations of that, but
I gave
one
up
thing
on
that's remained
this.
constant
I'm
is
on my phone.
teamwork along the way. So that's a big deal. You've got to partner with other trail communities. You've got to partner with your own members of your community, and then obviously Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks, other state, federal organizations, and then also local trail advocates in Kansas. So my recommendations is to be your own trail advocate. Maybe your city doesn't have a city manager or a city administrator or a very active local government. So, I know like Crystal in here, for example, has been a big advocate for the trails out west that may not quite get the attention of a Flint Hills Trail or whatever the case may be. So you've got to set big goals. Know that you can do it. Know that there's a broader organization you can be a part of to make this happen in Kansas Trails. You've got to really make your priorities known for your individual trails and what you want, and that ties into setting the big goals, and really just develop a vision and mission. So what do you want to do for your trail or the trail that goes through your community? Or can you partner with anyone, or do you really got to do it on your own? Is that trail just in your community and you don't really have another community to partner with? So you've got to develop your own vision and mission. And if it's just one or two people, I mean, you can do that just as well as having a lot of people involved. The second big point that's been beneficial is to get involved in the trail network. Kansas Trails is going to be our premier statewide trail organization. Our goal is to get everybody connected together. There's a lot of individual trail or nature or whatever organizations and individual communities. Kansas Trails to me is really that one main group, one main source of trails in Kansas and eventually beyond. Maybe how do we get together? Just be a part of that trail network is what I would recommend. Again, partnering with other communities, getting involved in with your neighboring communities or other communities along your trail. Some of our trail communities on the Flint Hills Trail are not as involved, so we've kind of got the four main cities together at one point, but certainly in the future when the trail's developed, we want to build relationships and partnerships with every community along the Flint Hills Trail, and then some of the other trails that might eventually connect onto that. Got to partner with Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks. They're going to be the people that can get you set up and can get you the grant funding, and they've done that. And I know they're very involved in Kansas Trails as well, and are going to be a part of that trail network in the future. Uh, Lastly, is strategic local investment. So some of what we've done, but other organizations could do is, land purchase acquisition. So start thinking about that land around your trail or near your trailhead that maybe you could buy or acquire or have donated that could eventually be part of the longer term development um, of your trail or the section of trail within your community. Uh, Start thinking about connections to existing parks or existing sidewalk networks, and then use that to tie into local grant initiatives. And basically, just think about leveraging your trail before it's fully developed. We've kind of been waiting for our trail to be developed for 3 or 4 years, and now we're to the point of, okay, our trail's not fully developed. It's not very walkable yet. It doesn't have the actual pathway that's going to be developed by the state. But how can we go ahead and leverage that for other grants in the community? So we referenced it for a Safe Routes to School grant that's going to help us connect a sidewalk network ultimately into the trail down the road. So it's never too early to start to leverage what that trail is going to be, even if it's not fully developed. My big takeaway is the best way to predict the future is to invent it. So again, be bold, take charge, take ownership of your trail. You may not have a city government that's very active, but no one's stopping you from being the leader on your own trail. So you can take that initiative yourself, or you can take that initiative to your local government, your mayor, your city commissioner, city councilor. Maybe you've only got a city clerk, but point to the other communities that are having success and say, hey, this is what we could get for ourselves. This is what we could build for ourselves in the future. Take risks. Try to make early investments that will maybe garner the attention of, the state or the feds or, Kansas Trails, who will maybe be able to, if not fund it themselves, get you in touch with the right people that can get you some grants to develop your trail. So you got to take risks. You often don't think it's going to pay off, but eventually it will. The last thing is to leverage your trail early on, despite if it's finished or not, or just being developed. You've got our trail, well, it's called the Flint Hills Trail, it doesn't really exist. So you've got to really predict the future or invent what that is going to be. And I'm sure Brandon will speak to it of how it got here and everything, but we're basically helping KDWP invent what the trail is going to be, the entire Flint Hills Trail, and ultimately the connection down here in Harrington where it's going to finish out. So that's all I've got today. I'm happy to answer any questions on that, and if not, I'll turn it over.
We'll save the questions until the end and do everyone have with all the questions at once. Thank you, Thatcher.
Thank you.
All right, Branden, you're up.
Hey y'all, I'm Branden Dross. As Brittany and Mike mentioned, I was the previous city manager before Thatcher, and Mike and myself, with the help of other partners in the community, were able to kind of kick this off to the current day, to where now Kansas Trails and Thatcher are able to do a majority of the work. And one of the things that I learned. This idea came out of another master plan that we had worked on. We were working on our lake and reservoir master plan. This was early 2021. And at that time, then Mayor Debbie Urbanik was talking about how we can connect the trailhead to the lake. And a lot of the discussions from the community in that master plan centered around how can we connect the lake to the trail and make this a recreational opportunity, and make it a recreation hub for the area. And around the time that we finished our master plan, that's when we started having conversations in the community, which was kind of led to the build a consensus early on. start the narrative in the community. Hey, is there an appetite for the trail? Is there an appetite for more recreation opportunities? And when we noticed that, we immediately got into the mode of, hey, let's build this organization. And Mike led this whole thing to what was then known, like Thatcher had mentioned, the Kansas Association of Trail Towns, and really started to work on how we can make this connectivity from the east part of the state to the central part of the state. And at that time, we started looking at how we can make this trailhead a possibility. I went to Osawatomie to go look at the previous United States Congresswoman out of the Kansas area had a groundbreaking of some sort, and I was there to just kind of look at the festivities and see how the Osawatomie trailhead had looked and how that can fit into the Harrington model. So before I left, one of the last things I was able to work on was to do a land swap with or purchase the land. I'm sorry, from a private landowner that would connect to the trailhead where it would be the trailhead in Harrington. So we were able to work with a contractor, and that contractor luckily believed in the vision of the trailhead. We had to, work on how much that was going to be purchased for and how we could make this happen and clear the land side out, which I know Thatcher was a part of after he came on board. And that was the initial discussion, how we're going to plan for this early on. So I know while Thatcher is working on those grants there in Harrington, one of the things that we initially had discussed was, okay, how can we make this happen? What is the first thing we can do? Because there's going to need to be money later on. And I know one of the discussions we were looking at was building this trailhead into the safe routes to school, which looks like Thatcher continued on that progress. And one of the major things that we had to kind of build into the community, as Thatcher's seeing, is the generational planning documents. I came on board, there wasn't really a guidance of where are we going to go, and a lot of discussion aroused around the lake plan, but then also tying into our comprehensive plan, which Thatcher got approved within his first year or so being there, which kind of set the guidance into other items in Harrington, but also specifically laid out the development of the trail. And without that development of the trail being dictated in the plans, who knows what would have happened if Thatcher leaves and the commission turned over. So when you build consensus early on, especially with the planning commission, the trailhead, letting people know in the community that this is coming, it's not really, hey, do you want this to happen? It's this is gonna come because there's an opportunity to receive revenue off this. And in a town like Harrington, I know when Michael toured the community for the first time and came to the commission meeting, he said, yes, this has to be here. There's no reason why this can't be a recreation opportunity. So some of the revenue streams and the downtown connectivity and the community, the downtown community really centered along this trail development. And so you need to make sure those generational planning documents are laid out and have that laid out. One of the things we had talked about when we mentioned in the master plan was we did a little survey and said, hey, do you think this is reasonable? Are you okay looking at increased costs to the general fund or through a mill levy increase to support this development? At the time, there wasn't much support for financing it directly from the general fund, but there was support from the community on making this happen. And how that looked like was something that obviously Thatcher's working on now. But you want to use that survey to guide those discussions. Once we realized there wasn't an appetite to raise taxes or to, bond any debt in the immediate term, we would just guide those discussions as a manager, not as a policymaker, which are two different things. The policymakers are looking to get elected, and so they'll say certain things that may be able to cater towards their base to keep them in their seat. We as managers have to have the hard conversations. We are the professionals and the executives who have to kind of lead the organization. So at that time, we had to say, okay, well, if we're not going to see any type of monetary assistance come right away. What's the one thing we can do for the city that can at least start this? And that was one of those things where we said, okay, we do have some money for land acquisition that we can look at purchasing at least the trailhead area from the partner in the community. And then after going back and forth, that was the one thing that we were able to do low cost to at least say, okay, the city has been able to invest at the beginning, and we're going to use other projects to connect to like the safe routes to schools and the other auxiliary items around there, the lake, the downtown development. I know there's some discussion in Harrington about the Broadway corridor. All of these things are going to tie into that. But when the city makes the first piece as buying that trailhead, that's when you start to see the momentum. And I think since then, momentum has picked up probably three or fourfold from when I first got there and inherited the city manager position. And then I know Thatcher talked a little bit about this, and as did Mike, but the interconnectedness between all of the organizations is key, between Kansas Wildlife, between the city of Council Grove, between the state, state reps, other city managers. Um, that's going to be key. I know, and Mike probably remembered me talking about this profusely, but in the past, Harrington always got the short end of the stick. All these big projects were going to end in Harrington, or we're going to include Harrington. Well, on the record, numerous times with the state legislator, with the governor's office, with KWDP, Harrington has to be one of the first places for construction along this route, or we're going to be left behind like always. So I made it a point through all my communications. When ground breaks, it can't end in Council Grove. If Council Grove is doing work, the city of Harrington needed to see some work as well, because there was always a sentiment in the community. Harrington's always going to fight for this, but then at the end of the day, we're going to get the short end of the stick, and they're going to pass us by. So crucial to make those connections and to keep those connections going throughout the project. Because if you fail to if you fail to communicate even at the beginning stages, you're going to get left out. And it looks like the Harrington is still keeping the communication there. They're doing a lot more work. And so the interconnectedness is the key to making sure that what your community needs is constantly communicated through your partners. And one of the quotes I've been hearing a lot, especially in Oregon, was from the city of Hillsborough, which is just west of the city of Portland. A longtime mayor there has always mentioned, "I view this city as a living, breathing thing. If it doesn't grow, it dies." And this is a metaphor capturing why it's necessity for urban or rural vitality. So if you want to really see the city grow, and you want to be a thriving community, sometimes you have to do things that it's going to take a while, and it's going to really take that change management to come into the community and tell them, hey, this is how it's always been done, but it doesn't mean we can't do this. And I know Thatcher's probably heard it. I heard it. Do we really need a trail? Do we really need the connectivity to the lake? At the end of the day, a lot of the people in town may not see the benefits for them particularly, but to bring people into Harrington and into the area to spend money is the point. We need to, Harrington use this as a recreation tool and as a tourism tool. Yes, while the residents inside the town were going to be the benefactors of this project, at the end of the day, new money was going to come into town, new eyes, and this all transcended into Logan's Point development, a housing development on the north side of town, and connecting the Broadway and connecting the residents to the school. All these projects, these accessibility projects, may not be beautiful on the face, but at the end of the day, they're needed. And once they are complete, the community can be like, you know what? Maybe we were wrong. Maybe we were wrong about this project. So sometimes you got to, if you don't let it grow, it's going to die. And you got to reverse the trend, especially in rural Kansas.
Thank you, Branden. All right, next up we've got Crystal.
Hi. So when I took this approach, I've been city clerk in Isabel since 2009. I'm also, like I said, a member of the Kansas Trails Board, member of Barber County United for about 2.5 years. And through my work with Barber County United, I was also, will say, voluntold into being a committee member with the Medicine Lodge Memorial Peace Park Trail Committee. Some of our work that we were doing over there, it was just tying in too much, and I opened my mouth, and then next thing I knew, I was a committee member. So really great things have come from that. I've been working on a trail project in Isabel through a grant that we received, and then more recently started conversations about a little bit larger gravel route there around our community. My trail work is really driven just by my love of the outdoors, camping, hiking, kayaking with my family. But I really feel like it's my experience with city government that's taught me the importance of understanding the local dynamics of whatever government you're approaching. So whether you're approaching them to talk about trails, or whether you're approaching them to talk about another project that you're passionate about, I feel like understanding where that board is currently at, what the temperature of the room is, so to speak, that is one of the key things when you're going to approach a local government. So I'm going to share my top 3 lessons that I feel like trail advocates need to know when working with local officials. Some of those approaches, I mean, it's from success and it's from challenges. And I want to prepare you guys. You're going to hear no a lot. And if you go into it with a mindset of be prepared to hear no, and then show back up, and then be prepared to hear no again. That's the biggest thing that I can let you know there. So the first lesson, building relationships. So if you're going to build, local officials are going to be a whole lot more open to support your project if they know who you are. If you're showing up, I come from a very small community. There's about 75 people in my city. We are one of the smallest communities in my county. So my commissioners knowing who I am, my council, obviously, since I'm the city clerk, they know who I am. But if we just get somebody that just shows up to the city council and just asks for money, and they don't know who they are, and they've never seen them involved with anything, they're going to be a little hesitant. They don't know you. They don't know your track record for showing up. So show up to those things. Start by having conversations, attend meetings, attend other events that are going on in your community. If you build trust over time with those local officials, that goes a long way, and having them be a little more open to hearing out your proposal. Also, know what your city or county, know what their priorities are at the moment. Whether it's health or tourism or economic development, if you can tie your trail back into those things, whatever they're currently passionate and whatever they're currently working on. And like Mike had said earlier, it's not always about what we want to do and where we want to devote our time. It's where we have to. The last year of my life has been water. That's where we have to. That's the project that we're so knee deep in. It's not that we don't want to do other things. It's that that's what has to be done in the moment. So if you know that, and you can tie your trail in to whatever that current project, that current need is in your community, that goes a long ways. Be realistic. Don't oversell your project. Don't come in and promise that you're going to have this 5-mile trail and it's going to be all these amazing things. Come in and say, hey, like you said, do that little short first part. Promise that you're going to show up. You're going to work hard. You're going to give it your all. And that also goes a long way. Being credible and not overselling your project. Don't overpromise something that you can't deliver on. And there are so many things in the trail world, whether it's grants, whether it's public funding, public perception. We can't control those things. So promise to work hard, and then show up and work hard, and that'll get you a lot farther than anything else. So, and once you've built those relationships, the next steps come to those meetings fully prepared. Come with facts and solutions to make your proposal compelling. local officials, they need to understand the practical side of things. Like, they are responsible for a lot of things. They're managing other people's money. So if you come to them with cost, liability, safety, maintenance, be ready to answer those questions. If you don't know the answers to those questions, because we can't predict the future, but ask people that have been in that, ask people that have already been building trails, what should I come prepared with? What facts do you think they're going to want to hear? Bring data and examples. Back up your proposal with economic studies or impact reports, the health benefits. The more that you can bring, whether you end up using it or not, if you have that information in front of you at the time of that meeting, that's going to go a long ways. A well-researched plan also helps build into that credibility and trust. And like I said, I'm not from a larger community. We're a very small community. And if you don't have trust, you don't have anything here. We don't have extra resources to gamble, so to speak, on people that we don't know that we can fully trust and are going to be fully committed to a project. So, the other thing I want to point out, highlight partnerships and shared responsibilities of whether it's building the trail, the maintenance of the trail, funding for the trail. That goes a long ways as well. And then before your meeting, kind of think outside the box to build community support before the fact. If you can get with your local hospital or your local school, local businesses, if you can partner with them to promote, whether you're, walking on your lunch break campaigns or biking to school, if you can already kind of start the momentum of public perception of, hey, we're an active community, or we want to be an active community, and we just need more space to do that. That goes a long ways. That goes a long ways with when you show up. If the commissioners have already been hearing about things, or their grandkids or their kids are in school, and the local school has been pushing this walking campaign, and now you're showing up asking for whether it's funding or permission or just to engage in a conversation about it, their mindset's already gonna have kind of been thinking along these lines, and it's going to go a lot farther in getting you the answer that you want. When you show up with that community mindset, if it's already shifting, that really helps. And then even with preparation, success doesn't happen overnight. That brings us to the next lesson. Be patient, persistent, and positive. This takes forever. And this goes back to that, be ready to hear no, be ready to hear the not yet. Trail development with local government takes time between budgets and hearings and approvals. Things move so slowly. Earlier, I mentioned my water project that started in 2021. I am not finished with that, and I got a yes in 2022. That it's taking forever, and that's with an approved, fully funded project. So trail projects, as we all know, are not fully funded, and they require a lot of volunteer time. So just be ready when you approach these, whether it's your council, your government, or, your commissioners. Be ready for it to take a while, and stay positive. Recognize that no doesn't always mean no forever. It might just mean not right now, whether it's funding or whether it's because we just don't have the capacity within the office to handle it and devote someone to doing the necessary things. And then when you hear no, follow up consistently but respectfully. Showing up continuously over time demonstrates that you're not giving up on this project, and it keeps that momentum going, even if it's just little things. Celebrate those small wins, even if it's just an endorsement or a supportive comment in a meeting. Even if you still got to know, recognize that, hey, they want to do this, they just can't right now, so we're going to keep working in the background, and we're not going away. And like I said, maintaining that positive attitude. You cannot jump on social media and blast your local government, whether it's your commissioners or your county. It can even be the county road department. You can't jump on there and get mad about the potholes one week and then show up to a commissioners meeting the next week asking for money for trails, because they're going to remember that you were the one out there bashing them for something that you really didn't have the whole picture on. So stay positive in all aspects. You know, and like I said, remember that trail advocacy is a long game. You know, I cannot stress enough how much that you're just going to have to stay patient and positive. And then I want to leave you with some words of encouragement as you move into your trail advocacy work. You know, long term, like I stated, you know, advocates are the bridge between community passion and local government. So if you are a trail advocate, you are what is connecting the general public because of your passion with the local government. And that's a huge role to fill. And we need those people, and we need those people to stay positive and to support us in all areas that we're working on. You know, don't forget, even the small steps. It can be Friday night football games that you're showing up, whether your kid goes to that school or not. Being present, being encouraging, volunteering at taking the tickets at the football game, you know, just little things, taking tickets at your downtown events, just being in the public eye constantly, always willing to help, always willing to show up. That goes a long way in our smaller, especially in our smaller communities where everybody kind of knows everybody. They know that you're going to show up and you're going to do the right thing consistently. And then I've seen firsthand how persistence and collaboration turns ideas into reality. I encourage each of you to keep advocating, stay connected with other advocates. This group for me personally has been so inspiring. And I say that every time I go to any kind of event away, whether it's a trail event or another event, I come away and I'm like, man, that was so refreshing. And now I'm excited to go home and work on these things again. You know, iron sharpens iron. So staying connected helps keep us refreshed, and our community benefits from us staying refreshed. That's all I have, Brittany.
Thank you so much, Crystal. I love that iron sharpens iron. That's great. All right, next up we've got Dave. Dave, welcome. We need to unmute you real quick. There you go.
You hear me now?
There you go.
Thanks, Brittany.
Of course.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. You know, my perspective is a little bit different than the three previous speakers. I'm a resident of Colby, Kansas. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background on how I got to this point to meet with y'all. I met my wife when we were in Kansas City. She's a Colby, Kansas girl. And we moved to Texas. We lived in Texas for a number of years. And while we were in Texas, I had my son Parker. And he started riding a scoot bike when he was about 2 years old. And then he got into BMX racing in Texas, which is pretty big. And so he was really good. He's one of the top kids in the state when he was down there. And then you know, we had a desire to be closer to home, to be closer to family. So in 2019, we moved back to Colby. And of course, you know, first thing is, where can we take Parker to ride bike? Well, the closest BMX tracks are Topeka, Park City, or Denver, Colorado. So his BMX career came to a screeching halt as soon as we hit the ground in Colby. But then I started looking, you know, we got the mountains, we got the Colorado mountains. Let's get him a mountain bike and let's go up to Colorado and see some things. And we went up to Boulder, Colorado to Valmont Bike Park, and they've got, you know, jumps and ramps and trails and pump tracks. And when we were driving back home, I said to my son, I said, what if Colby had a park like this? And he looked at me, and he's in seventh grade at the time, and he said, you'd never see me in the house anymore. So, you know, he really enjoyed that. And, you know, that's what got me thinking, like, well, why can't we have something here in Colby? And then I started researching more mountain bike stuff, and I found that Kansas has the NICA Mountain Bike Racing League. And all the teams are on the eastern side of the state. The closest team to us is North Central Kansas, the Raptors, up in Osborne area, Glen Elder. And so we signed up for that team and we started racing 2 years ago. And, you know, that's, you know, when we have practices at Doug's place, Doug Palin Farms, you know, that's about a 2 hour and 45-minute drive for us. You know, if we have practice at the Wilson State Park, that's a 2 hour and 15-minute drive for us, which, you know, you're in Western Kansas, you're driving everywhere, you kind of get used to it. But when gas is $4 a gallon and you're driving out and back in one day and you're spending a lot of money for practice, I mean, it starts becoming a toll. And and it starts to become a little discouraging for my son. It's like, we got to drive all that way again. And I love the biking, but it's so far away. So I'd heard some local legend that there was a bike jump along the creek. Prairie Dog Creek runs through Colby. And I heard some local legends that there was a bike jump that kids used to ride down there, but it's all overgrown. So I got with the parks guy, the director of the parks, Kyle, and I said, "Hey, I heard there used to be a bike trail over here." And he says, "Yeah, it was just kind of a small jump." And I said, "Well, can we kind of dig it back up and rebuild it and maybe do something over here?" And he said, "You know what? I have a better place for you. Follow me." Well, on the northwest corner of Kansas, of Colby, uh, there's a park. It's about 13 acres. It runs up to the railroad. The train comes through, and then there's a small park over there. But that area was the original city dump way back when Colby first incorporated, way back when. And it's now defunct. They've been burying it with dirt. And he said, this might be better for you. What do you think? And I'm like, seeing all the trees, and there's a little bit of elevation change. And I'm like, yeah, heck yeah. Like, when can we start? He said, well, we need to go talk to Ron, the city administrator, and talk to him first, because they were wanting to build houses out here. So went and talked to Ron, the city manager. And he said, yeah, he says, about 3 years ago, we did a site survey on this land, and we can't build anything on it because there's too many voids under the ground. We did a sonar check, and it's just not stable enough. We don't know what to do with it. So it's just sitting here. So I said, well, can we get permission to maybe build some trails and some bike features out here? And he said, yeah, let's get you in front of city council. So in February, these conversations happened last year, like late summer, fall time period of 2024. Just kind of speaking to the length of being patient, and this stuff does take time. I was able to get in front of city council in February of this year, and I told them about Kansas NICA. We'd like to get a team out here, it'd be good for the kids. We'd like to, but I can't have a team if I have nowhere to take them to practice. Like, I can't prepare these kids to race in state races if they've never ridden over rocks and boulders and going fast down a dirt trail. So, we have this space, and I went saying, I'm here asking for permission. I'm not saying, hey, I want you guys to build this. This would be great for the community. You guys build it for my kid and the other kids to ride on it. I approached it of, hey, I'm here asking for permission. If you guys can let me get in there, I know there's some great resources with the guys up in North Central Kansas that have been great to my kid on the team, and they've done a lot of trail stuff, and they've been good advisors. So I think we can put something together. It's just, if I can get the permission. And I thought for sure the city council at that meeting would say, well, let's table it, and I'll talk about it and come back in a month or two. Shockingly, they did a vote, and they said, yeah, if you guys want to go out there and put some stuff together and come back to us with the plan next month, yeah, go for it, but there's no money for it. They made sure let me know that there was no money for it. So that's kind of where we started. So if you go look at the next slide, just a little background on kind of how I got to this point. Having those right champions, having the director of parks being supportive of it, and having the city administrator, before I pitched it to the larger group, and they were also able to socialize the concept with the city council members before the meeting. So I believe that helped as well. It does take a village. And so, you start getting that word out there, from the city folks. And then people start saying, well, hey, I know so-and-so, he rides gravel bikes. Like, you should talk to him. So then you talk to this person, and like, yeah, I'll help out there. I'll volunteer. So you kind of start building a little network. And Colby doesn't have a biking community. The closest bike shop is Hayes, which is an hour and a half east of us. There's most of the land is privately owned out here, so there's not a lot of public land to just go out and to tool around on. We're really kind of starting this from scratch, building not just trails, but actually a biking community here in Northwest Kansas. Then I got to know there's a gentleman in Atwood that just moved back. He was big in mountain biking, so I got connected to him. So he's going to be a coach for us. So it's not just for Colby; it's going to be for all of Northwest Kansas. And having that good communication, like the other speaker said, is making your goals stated very clearly, and having some big goals. and communicating those is very good as well. So that's whenever I got in touch with the Kansas Trails folks, Mike Scanlon, Mike Goodwin. We now have a trail in the box out here. It's sitting out by the trail. Used it this weekend to go and mow a little bit, to mow another little path, and starting to smooth out the trail. The city's been really good about mowing it. Once we marked it out, the initial path, they mowed it for us and they sprayed it. So they've helped where they can. So it does take a village for sure to get this done. And putting a bike park supports the community priorities. So the city mayor and the city council wants to build more housing in Colby. We're right on the interstate. Anything we can do to keep people who are stopping to get gas and a bite to eat, if they can stay a little bit longer and maybe spend a little bit more money. This is an attraction that can do that. They want to build more housing, affordable housing, and keep the population here. So you need to give people recreation activities to do those. So, the trail fits in really well with those community priorities. So when I'm talking to those folks, I'm saying, it can help with, quality of life and keeping people in Colby, or maybe pulling people who would have passed Colby to stop in because we have a featured trail here in town. And, like I said, give before you take. I went in saying, I just want permission. Let me have permission. Not asking for money. And then being flexible. As we start getting into this, there's a lot of ideas like, well, hey, what about this? Or have you thought about that? And I had a call with Mike Scanlon and Mike Goodwin and Myron Lenwider, and they put me in touch with Clark Cohen with Rails to Trails. So he's been giving me some additional information, and they said, you need to talk to so-and-so at the Kansas Wildlife and Parks. And so, what I really thought was we're just going to fix this little trail up and have a place to practice and ride. Now it's turning into, this could be bigger and more fun than I even imagined. So I'm having to be very flexible on what my initial vision was to incorporate, these other resources as they're coming to bear. And so that's where I started up the Adventure NWK not-for-profit, as I saw how you have to get grants. You need to have organization to be able to partner with communities to get those funding. So that's where Adventure NWK came into play. Key takeaways, and I tell the kids whenever they're riding their bikes, you go slow to go fast. You set the foundation strong and build upon that. And then naturally it'll start going faster on its own as you start progressing. And I'm seeing that already just in the last 6 months. We did a recruiting event here at the Sunflower Festival in Colby, took the NICA tent down there, recruiting riders and coaches, and people are coming up saying, hey, I love riding bikes. I'm glad there's something going on. And so it's starting to pick up a little bit of steam now that we're getting out there and the community starting to hear about us. One of the nicest stories was I heard a gentleman he's a middle school cross country teacher, and he's into biking, and I networked with him. Well, he's been taking his cross country kids out to run on that new trail because it's got nice elevation terrain change. So it's already getting used, and we haven't really promoted it to the community yet, just by word of mouth. And so, celebrating those types of small wins along the way, that, hey, it's starting to get used by not just biking, but also, the cross-country runners, and there's people walking their dogs out there in the community. So celebrating those wins along the way, and just having fun with it. It's biking. Let's go out and have fun. Let's get outside and enjoy ourselves and enjoy the Colby community and enjoy the sunsets. It's on the western side of town, so if you go out there in the evening, you get some beautiful sunsets riding the trail as well. So that's just my perspective as somebody from the community who went to the city and talking to the community organizations and the city government, kind of where we've been successful and kind of how we've gotten here. And I really look forward to working with Kansas Trails moving forward to really make this a nice shining star in Northwest Kansas, where there's very little trail activity at this point.
That's super cool, Dave. That's really great to hear success story about how you can go through this process, and it's not as scary as some people think it might be. And I love the, maybe you might hear a maybe, you might hear later, you might hear not right now, but I think that as you champion these projects and these initiatives, and your community leaders see your passion and the benefits for the community, that's generally you can get them on board. after, if not instantly in your case, after time. So, all right, let's open it up for some questions for our panel. We've got about 5 minutes left. So, does anybody have a question? You want to raise your hand, or unmute yourself and ask the question? Mike, did you have a question? You unmuted.
Mine wasn't so much a question as just having listened to all of the speakers to remind people, sometimes we think social media is the great thread that pulls us all together, but oftentimes Facebook gets used as a hammer, to Crystal's point, and really to all of the speakers. Don't use it to hammer your local officials if you're trying to get a trail. Use it as honey. You use it to support people. And to Crystal's point, showing up is 9/10 of it. You have to appear. I will tell you, Dave, when he appeared before the Colby City Council, meant more to that council than he might ever know, in terms of, here's a person, has a passion, has a plan, worked with staff, and he's now coming to ask us for help. Those are the easy ones for council members to deal with. It's when they've been hammered on social media. Yeah, I've heard you want trails. You made it clear on your Facebook post 1,000 times. When you walk into a council chamber, when you have the support of the community and the staff, it goes a long ways in getting the support of that elected body. And don't discount handing out tickets or selling tickets at football games in Kansas. That can get you way down the road.
Anybody else have a question?
Yep, Brittany, this is Myron Linewinter. Quick question, probably for Crystal. For those of us in really small communities that don't have a city manager or a kind of a focal point to go to at a city council, what do you recommend as the best approach to as far as advocating for trails?
So in my community, I'm kind of the undesignated city manager, just because that's the way my mayor wants it right now. In the past, my mayor is usually kind of my city administrator. So again, it's going to kind of go back to knowing the temperature of your current council, who is out there advocating and handling the projects. So like with my water project, I'm the connection. I'm the project manager for that, where normally it would be a city manager. I have several other projects going on that they've been my babies, and so the council has appointed me as the project lead in those. So I guess it's just going to depend on who within your city government is. It could be a council member, like it could be a super involved council member that is kind of the person that's got their thumb on kind of the heartbeat of what's going on, and so that's who you would connect with first and get on your side.
All right, anybody else? Last call. All right. Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists. We appreciate your time so very much. We will have this recorded and on our website and post it to the social media sites as well. So if you attended and want to come back and rewatch it, it'll be available. And for those of you who signed up and weren't able to join, it's available as well. Our next episodes, we're halfway through our series. So in October, we're going to talk about trail funding. That was also really high on the list of what from our trail user survey of what people wanted to hear about. How do we fund our trails? And then in November, we'll do trail accessibility. And we're still in the process of planning what we're going to do in December. But we really hope that y'all can join us for the next sessions. Again, keep a lookout on our social media platforms for the Ride for Resilience. And wish Mike the best of experiences over the course of the next month. Cheer him on, follow, like, share, all those things. And again, thank you for joining us. Thanks to our panelists, and thanks for everyone who attended. So we'll see you on the trail.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thanks.